Welcome back. You know, having owned a Charger for all my adult life, I sometimes will take it for granted. I mean, this is the second most popular of the true Chargers, the third generation. And it's truly amazing to me how people flock to this nameplate. And especially now at its 60th anniversary, because in 1966 was the initial Charger in January. I want to go look back on how Chrysler Corporation decided to make this car for Dodge to compete with Pontiac. Pontiac? Yes, Pontiac. And that decision changed Dodge forever. Let us look into how this came to being. We're going to do some history. In September of 1963, and John DeLorean, yes, that John DeLorean, decided to bend the rules of General Motors, where you had to have 10 pounds of car for every cubic inch of engine. So a 350 car had to weigh 3,500 pounds. Just one of their rules. So he found a way to get around this. So what he did is he took an option, which did not get covered in the rules, for their cheapest car, the Tempest and the Le Mans. He built a high-performance 389 that could even have tri-power on it, which was unheard of on a small performance car. He added hood scoops, dual exhaust, better suspension, and then he gave it a great name, the GTO, Gran Turismo Optimo. This caught everybody in the automotive world by surprise because he had created the muscle car, and they sold a lot of these Pontiacs. And this made everyone notice. Nobody less than the new president of Chrysler Corporation, Lynn Townsend. Now, Lynn Townsend was very odd for presidents of Chrysler because he was the youngest president of Chrysler since Walter B. Chrysler was president of Chrysler. He was in his early 40s. Now, he had risen through the ranks through the accounting side of the business, but he really wasn't a number cruncher in that sense. He knew how to contain costs, but he understood that the end product should have high quality and give value to the buyer. When he saw it was done at Pontiac, he immediately wanted that for his corporation, and he wanted Dodge to make that car.
So their first attempt at making this car was the Dodge Dart Charger 273, a special package that was done in 1965.
So he wanted to have that car at Dodge with a lot of the speed goodies and a pretty decent price. It was the nicer cars that had more features than Plymouths, but were cheaper than, Chrysler's, the average man car. Also, their average age of purchase was 50 years old. So this wasn't a car for young people either. Because of this reason, he got a lot of pushback from the Dodge dealers because they did not want to go toe-to-toe with Pontiac because Pontiac was the performance vision of General Motors. They built the race cars for General Motors. They were the performance division. And this was not where they were comfortable. Thankfully, Townsend ran, Chrysler like a dictatorship, a benevolent dictator, because he made a peace offering to the dealers in 1964. It was a newly styled Dodge Polara. It was very traditional in its looks, and also it was very standard in its options. It could be had from a slant 6 all the way up to a 383 at that time, or even maybe a 426 wedge. This is where it gets weird with the Charger nameplate because Chrysler didn't come up with this name. And the thing is, Charger at the time, according to Webster's dictionary, basically meant it was a cavalry horse that was trained to go into battle. So it's a pretty good imagery right there for a car that's going to be performance oriented. But the name was developed by a man named Don Beebe. He was a Michigan promoter who approached Chrysler in 1963 with the idea of having the Dodge Chargers, which were high-performance Polara race cars, in a brand new category that he worked with NHRA to get called S/FX, which is Super Factory Experimental. The cars were basically Dodge Polaris with giant blown wedge engines that would go and run on NHRA tracks to promote, Chrysler's performance. Later that year, Chrysler liked the name so much they came out with a car called the Charger as a show car. It was a Polara with the top cut off with a Hemi in it to help promote the Hemi and also give the promotion of Chrysler going to the performance world and doing drag racing and NASCAR. Now, the car that they went and designed actually had a very odd inspiration, the Charger 2, which is this car. For some reason, in the mid-60s, fastbacks were like a big design thing in Detroit. First you had the AMC Marlin, this thing. Then the Ford Mustang fastback, this one right here. And then, of course, last and least, the first actual pony car, or it should be a fish car, the 1964 Barracuda. Yes, the Barracuda beat the Mustang to market by a few weeks, but, it kind of didn't sell as well as the Mustang. But this is the weird thing. The Dodge dealers wanted something like the Barracuda, except bigger. They did not want an A-body because that was more of a Plymouth thing to have a small, cheap car. They wanted something on the B-body, the mid-size platform. And the other part of this is that Dodge was starting to look at aerodynamics for NASCAR. They weren't really doing that well with their current lineup of cars, because with their Hemi, and they figured that if they had an aerodynamic car, they'd be able to, compete better. So now we have the Charger 2 concept. Now with its swooping C-pillars, very sloping back window, but it had a very Buick Riviera front end, which almost looked kind of out of place. Dodge ran this car out at show car circuit in 1965 to gauge the public appeal, and it seemed so good that in January of 1966, it was released, and the sales were okay. See, this is where Lynn Townsend's idea met the harsh reality of the Dodge dealer network. After researching this, it happens that Townsend wanted a car like the GTO, a single trim that was high performance and had only the options for more performance. This did not sit well with the Dodge sales division or the dealers wanting to have a simple bread and butter car for their 50-year-old buyers. Because of this, Dodge division pushed back hard for all-out performance model. And Chrysler did concede this, and they put the Coronet drivetrains, less the Slant 6, into the new Charger. So you had the 318 Poly, 2-barrel, 361 2-barrel, 383 and 4-barrel, and the 426 Hemi. The sister division of Plymouth was doing a much better job at wooing younger buyers. With the Valiant Barracuda setup, they built what the Charger should have been, just if it had been marked down at a cheaper price. The 1967 GTX, which only had a 440 or a Hemi as engine options. The only reason that the GTX was so expensive is that it had high-end trim like the Charger. The GTO did not have this. This might have been a tactical error. We will see. So the other part is that Plymouth was much better at progression in their lineup because it flowed from the A-body Valiants into your Belvedere Satellite as they step up in the B-bodies. And then you had your GTX, and then you had your large cars, the Fury. So they were much better set to have a performance-oriented model than Dodge at this time, because Dodge was basically Dart, Coronet, Charger, Polara, Monaco. It was not a very good setup for Dodge to have this car. They didn't make the mix correct, which we will see in a second, because what happened is that it only sold 37,000 in the 1966 year, which was shortened because it came out in January, from January till like August. It's not horrible. It wasn't GTO, which sold over 100,000 units in its first year. I mean, the car had a lot of things going for it. It was very different looking. It had a lot of room. It had every V8 offered by Chrysler, from the 318 to the Hemi. But here's the problem. It started at $3,100. And that's with a 318 Poly in it, while the GTO was $2,800 with its 389. When you added the 383 to the car with the 4-barrel, you were over $3,300, and you haven't added any options. You would cost $4,000 with the 66 Charger once you put the 426 Hemi in it. And that is why they sold only 468 of it. 1967 did not get any better. The competition increased immensely, even in its own lineup by having the Coronet RT come out. And so the Charger only sold 15,000 units in 1967. And the main difference between the two cars is the turn signals on the front, and the center console didn't go all the way to the back as a solid piece. It actually was broken up. So here's another little piece of trivia on the 66 Charger. It was the first car to have a factory spoiler as an option. And that was standard with the Hemi. This was done because the car generated lift. So the back end of the car was picking up at speeds over 150 miles an hour in the NASCAR tracks. And it needed a homogulated rear spoiler. So they actually had one, and it's a little duckbill spoiler in the back of the car. Granted, this was nothing compared to the 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona right here, or the 1970 Superbird, which actually had a taller wing. But this was a very unique feature to a very unique car. Thankfully, Townsend hung in with the Charger. He let the designers do a little bit more of a traditional car in the second generation of the Charger, and they kind of did a decent job. They made a car that basically was as many cars as Chrysler could make. The 96,000 Chargers that they made that year was capacity for that car. It also didn't hurt that the Charger is the most memorable car from the movie Bullitt, with the greatest car chase ever. And of course, it is the better car in that movie, without even question. And that movie absolutely helped with marketing so much, because it made the Charger seem really cool, because bad guys use it. So now we come to today. Unfortunately, Stellantis owns the former Chrysler Corporation. And what have they done for this 60th anniversary of the most famous nameplate? Absolutely, positively nothing. No special edition, no special badging. I mean, they did make a post on DodgeGarage.com, whatever. Such minimal fanfare kind of says it all about how Stellantis views Chrysler and Dodge history. They don't care. And so we are being robbed of something kind of unique and fun. So that's how the Charger came to be and where it is now. Please let me know in the comments below your favorite Charger. Any type of great Charger stories you have, or anything else you want to add to this little video of mine, just do it in the comments below. And and also what Stellantis really should have done for this 60th anniversary. And as always, if you like this to this point, hey, if you liked any of it, hit like below, please. If you like car stuff, hit subscribe. I do all sorts of car stuff that normal car guys do. And give me the hype points, because for smaller creators like myself, and we just call ourselves that because that's what they call us, hit that hype, because it just helps me, because this is something I'm doing for passion and fun, and I just want to be able to cover the cost. The one thing, though, is that if you have something cool to drive or something fun to drive, you take that out, because you'll make someone's day, and it'll probably be your own. And I'll catch you really soon.